Okay, let's start with Angela. What did you bring? Oh, yeah.
Well, I brought Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love book.
Ooh, okay, we're gonna hear more about that shortly. And Grace, what did you bring?
I have my palms up, empty hands. I brought empty hands and open mind.
Ooh, empty hands and open mind. Wow. Well, you guys are in for a treat. Welcome. This is your episode of Not Quite Strangers. And my name is Valerie Hope, your host. Every week, well, not even every week. I don't even know how often it happens. It feels like every day I have these interactions. But we have this beautiful opportunity to bring two people together who've never met, but they're still not quite strangers. And we have a conversation that inspires curiosity, builds connection, and perhaps even challenges the status quo. If you have not already subscribed to this podcast, please go to notquitestrangers.com and subscribe so that you don't miss a single episode in your inbox. You can also subscribe to the Connected Joy channel on YouTube, and you'll get a notification anytime we post a new episode. So today I bring together two very special people. One would be termed Nutter Mutter in her own words. And I have the OG of the Hope family, the original gangsta, my mother, Angela Hope. Welcome to Not Quite Strangers.
Thank you for having us.
So it's weird to call my mother Angela. I don't know. I just don't do it. So I'm going to call you Mama because that's what I call her. I call her Mama. So Mama, you're just going to, and you guys can hear me. I hope I don't revert to my 13-year-old self. I have a tendency to do that when she pokes and prods in some sensitive topic.
You'll know if your voice goes high.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Yes.
When I start whining, it's a sign. It's a sign. You might need to bring those open palms and just like.
Yeah.
So first of all, I can already tell this is going to be a fun conversation, but I knew the moment that I wanted to do this podcast that the two of you needed to meet. Number one, because both of you are absolutely important in my life. That goes without saying. My mother, obviously, but then Grace also been wonderful friends for the last few years. But there's so many things that the two of you have in common. There's so many things that I think would be really fascinating for the two of you to talk about. I thought there's no better time than actually doing it live in front of a bunch of people, because that's how you put people at ease. But there's a reason I actually thought, at least initially, that would be cool for the two of you to meet, and is actually related to what both of you brought to share in the podcast. So Mama, I'm going to start with you. You said you brought a book, Return to Love, and the request I made was that you bring something that represents your spiritual evolution or transformation over the course of your life. So tell us, what is that book about, or what does it mean to you?
Well, just amazing. For so many years, I've read the Bible several times, I think, and I practice, faith and Christian religion, and had a great time, and taught Sunday school, and mentored young people, and then so much. But after reading this book, I just got so fascinated with Marianne, and she was so young when she wrote this book, and now I'm listening to her, and she's just wonderful. The way all the stories, she brings everything to light and makes it so manageable to be a good person, and about love, and something so simple. Is this all we need in life? Love, return to love. So when it said a return to love, it means that we have fallen out of love. And something that's simple and free and easy. So anyway, I'm just fascinated by her teachings, and I listen to her every opportunity.
Can you show us the book on the video so we can see it? Hold it up a little higher. There it is. Marianne Williamson, Return to Love. Very cool. And I'll put it in the notes in case people want to, investigate what that is.
Yes.
All right, cool. So it's made a difference. I'll dig into that a little bit further. And Grace, what about you? Open palms, you mentioned.
Open hands and open mind. And Angela, I have to tell you, I didn't realize that you were into a course into Williamson. I didn't realize that. So this is going to be an more interesting topic than I even thought.
Well, thanks to Valerie. She introduced me, really.
My open hands, empty hands, open heart. I've been searching all my life. I've been searching for the answers. I grew up in my Baptist church, and when I was 14 years old, and I asked my Sunday school teacher, "You mean to tell me that somebody that's, I don't know, in a jungle somewhere, and they've never even seen anybody except in another village, much less heard about Jesus? You telling me that person is going to go to hell?" And she didn't answer that very well, not at all. So I kept my open mind, not quite believing everything that they were telling me. When I got to college, I started going to a Methodist church, really branching out. Went into a Methodist church. And then it was like, oh, they don't translate every jot and tittle. Oh my goodness. You can interpret the Bible? And I kept looking over my shoulder. Throughout my 20s, I kept going to the Methodist church and broadening. And then it's interesting, in my early 30s, I ran into Edgar Casey. And he, again, believed in meditation, believed in interpreting dreams, believed in a much broader religious, spiritual life than I had been into before. And then a little later in the 70s, I got into Unity Church. And that just seemed to be my home. I just cried for a long time when I got there, because the ideas really seemed to be in an established institution, church, seemed to be what I could believe. So that did for me for a long time. And then, excuse me, I ran into A Course in Miracles in the late 70s. And like a good student, page 1, chapter 1, went completely over my head, closed that book, put it on the shelf, until about 10 years ago, when I joined a study group at the church, Unity Church that I'm in now. And it was like, oh, wow, this answers my questions. A Course in Miracles answers my questions, and answered me more questions than I didn't even know I wanted to ask. So, nice. Empty hands and open hearts, open mind, and I'm still learning.
That was actually a big reason why I wanted to bring the two of you together, because, well, first of all, Mama, you're my role model when it comes to so many things. And it's been really encouraging to see how over the years, you become more and more spiritually adventurous, maybe I could call it that, like just discovering. And both of you are so inspirational from that perspective, because you're both in a part of I've been instructed and trained not to share anyone's age. I've been conditioned. I'm telling you, that's when those open palms close together. But both of you are in a phase of life where one would think that you become much more set, or much more entrenched, perhaps, or committed to sorry?
Rigid has been the word.
I don't have any judgment.
The expectation is, but it's you're rigid.
Yeah, that you become more set in the ways of whatever path you chose. But from the experience I've had with both of you, is you become even more open. And I want to know, like, what do you attribute to that? I get that you were raised one way and then you became curious about other things and you started to expand, but what is it that made that possible, especially in an environment? And I imagine you have peers that aren't quite in that space. So how do you manage all of that? I'd love to ask both of you. So whoever wants to go first. Mama, why don't you try first? Let me ask you first.
Well, I guess it's just meeting people and seeing, what's going on in the world, and noticing that, wow, there's all this, because I love what Marianne said. No one has a monopoly on the truth. And if you're happy and you're loving and caring about yourself and about the environment, about the world, or people around you, yeah, you got to take a second look. What is it in the water? What are we drinking? What are we doing to make our lives better? If we make our lives better, make others, I think it's just a great thing. And so I decided that I needed to explore, just like Grace said, to learn more. There's so much more to learn. And that's a good thing about growing older. I'm grateful that I'm getting older and not closed. I'm pretty much like Grace. Really like what you said about the open hands and open heart, open mind. And then not only that, I like to hang out with young people too. And if you have an open mind,
We're the worst. Well,
they'll
she hangs out with much younger than me. I'm not in that group.
They'll tell you more. They'll tell you more.
Love it.
But just to follow up on something real quick. So both of you started off your spiritual journeys in very rigid, if you will, right? Or very, very, very specific paths. Baptist, Grace, Mama, you were a part of the Salvation Army for many years. You actually wanted to become a pastor, right?
Yeah,
an officer in the office, in the army, Salvation Army. So both of these very specific, very defined paths. And I guess, yeah, I'm so curious to know what it is that had you both like break out of that path. I get the openness, but there seems to be like, was there a break? Was there a moment that just, I mean, Grace, you pointed to your, that moment in Sunday school where she didn't answer, your teacher didn't answer the question, but it seems like there's so much more work to try to get out of the path that most people would find the conventional spiritual Christian path. How did you do that?
I don't think it was, I don't think it was as much me as it was, it up here, there was so much dyssynchrony with what I thought has to be the truth, the spiritual truth. There was just dyssynchrony in my church. And I moved on to the Methodist church and I found a little more, but still there was that basic dyssynchrony. I just couldn't believe that if God is love, that all these special people over here are so special and everybody else is just dead in the water. It just never made sense to me. So I was searching for truth the whole time. Yeah. For me, that's all it was, I think. I think maybe too, it had something to do with, your upbringing. And they say that before you're 7 years old, you're kind of set with what you think is right. What's the truth about yourself and how you see the world. And my mom did a wonderful, horrible thing for me. I developed this, I'm not good enough, kind of a feature in my personality. And so all my life, I've been trying to prove that I am good enough. And part of it is I want to know what truth is so that I can act it out in the world. I want to be the best that I can be. And I can't be that if I don't know what the truth is. So for me, it was just sort of a natural progression, I think.
I got to say that for me, both of you, what you're both saying has already happened, even in my life, because I also grew up, Salvation Army was the way to go when we were very young. And I would say even moving here to Texas, I'm here in Dallas, Mama, you're in Alabama, Grace, you're in Texas as well. But when I first moved to Texas, I started going to the Salvation Army. It's similar, it harkens the Methodist faith, if you want to give it a generic label there. But and I was super committed. I was in Sunday school, I was in the choir, I was an interpreter. I mean, I was in it. And I remember I was a Sunday school teacher, 7th and 8th grade Sunday school teacher for several years. And there was a moment where, I was a co-teacher with Billie Jean Diarman. Bless her heart. She's since passed. She was in her 80s at the time. She's my co-teacher, and she was very keen on the students memorizing all these different scriptures. So she had all these Bible drills that we do, and something in me kept saying, they need more. 7th and 8th grade is like prime time for kids to like form all sorts of crazy ideas about themselves or about other people. And so I started bringing in things around like what kind of music do you listen to? Or we, talking about, I don't even know if he talked about sex, but I feel like I tried to bring something in there about like just, just some sort of practical message. So I was already kind of pushing against just memorizing scripture and really thinking about life. Like, how are you going to live a life that works? That was the first thing that started to kind of rub up against it. And then I remember inviting my older brother to do a session on like interfaith and different denominations. Can you talk about the difference between Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Christianity? And that didn't go over that great. But I started to rebel, I guess is the word, right, against some of the notions. And eventually all of that starting to expand and expand. I read a book called The Wisdom Hunter. I don't remember the name of the author, but The Wisdom Hunter was the book that finally set me free from, okay, religion has to look this way in order for it to work. My faith and my spirituality actually is expansive. Is expansive, is not narrow and defined. And so it just gave me the freedom to start opening up to a lot of different messages and a lot of different speakers and really finding what resonates. But I think it's challenging, even in my, our own family, I have two brothers who are very, very focused on Christianity looking a certain way. So just curious about what is it to talk about this, if you talk about it at all, with people in your life, your family, your peers? How much do you share about your spirituality with them?
Oh, I never share spirituality. I kind of learned to listen. People ask questions, but so many people, just like you were saying, scripture is the thing, and that's great. But I think it's very important to branch out and to ask more questions and to listen to others. Because I've had a lot of friends. At some point, a few years ago, I was mentored to and host a few international students at the university here at Troy University. And I met quite a few amazing Indian and Chinese scholars and from Bangladesh for so many areas. And we never talk about, and I remember this young lady from Germany, and she was asking me, Miss Angela, why is it I try to make friends at the university, but a lot of folks want me to go to their church first? Yeah, she's like, oh, you got to come to my church. And she said she went once and never went back and did not make friends. And I thought that was so it was unreal. I couldn't believe that she was asked to come to church. And so that kind of opened my mind and to listen to what they had to say, in that that's not important. So I remember, I learned my lesson. Do not invite people to your church.
That's the lesson. If you're a pastor and you're a listener, please do not tune out. There's a point.
Unless they indicate to you that they're
yes, exactly. And that has happened. Some folks will ask, how is the church here in America? And that's different, right? And then I make an invitation, and that'll be wonderful. I make sure to take them to the potluck suppers, that we always had, and that was good. No, I'm an Episcopalian, and so we our services are short, so that's another plus. And people like that. It's an hour long, so it's just great, But yeah, I learned a lot with those students. I think that was the start of my, wow, as you said, adventure, Valerie. Trying to learn from other people and to see how they live and hear about, their families, how they lived and how, so that's why I love Marianne Williamson. She said, all you need is love. Is there a song that goes, all you need is love? All you need is love.
Yeah. That's the Beatles, right?
Beatles.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for singing, because you guys are the only ones that have ever taken, and I didn't even have to invite you to sing. I've asked a few people in the podcast and they were like, no, you guys can look up the song. Oh, man.
We're older, so we've been there, done that. It's not.
Yes.
I have very conservative relatives. But what I discovered is I don't use their vocabulary and I don't use my vocabulary. I use a common vocabulary.
Yes.
That, you know, we can talk about spirit, we can talk about love, we can talk about forgiveness, we can talk about all kinds of things that they understand, but it doesn't come out of my mouth with the terms that I would talk to other Course in Miracles people about. There's a specific vocabulary that goes with that, and a specific vocabulary that goes with the conservative Christian, but there's truth in both. And so when I talk to my conservative relatives, which I don't do very often, or other people that I know that are quite conservative religiously, I just try to translate the concepts into those vocabulary words that are going to be acceptable to both, because truth is truth is truth.
That is. Yeah. How has it, I mean, both of you mentioned how much love is the cornerstone of the truth that you now seek and want to express. So what does that look like? What impact, what practical impact has your spiritual evolution had on your life and how you behave or what you do or what you don't do?
Enormously. Course in Miracles talks about how God is love, and therefore so am I. We all are love. It talks about there's only really two responses in the world. We're either expressing love or we're calling for love, help, and healing. So then I translated that to, so there's only two responses that we need to give to other people. We either thank them for the love they're giving us, or ask Spirit, how can I give this person what they're asking for? Are they asking for love? Are they asking for help? Are they asking for healing? Because of course also says we've taught ourselves very badly. We've taught from birth that we're in a body and that we're separate from each other. When in fact, the truth about us is there's not three people sitting here on this screen. There's just one. Mm-hmm. We're all connected by spirit. We're one spirit. But from birth, we see three, and therefore we act that way. So we're all love, and love is all we either give or ask for, and that's what we can give. Course in Miracles says you're never upset for the reason you think, and it always goes back to I'm lugging something from the past and throwing it on you, so that love helps me to forgive. And forgive, in Course in Miracles terms, means to undo the judgment that I have made. So if I'm mad at you, it's because I've made an unloving judgment about what I think you're doing. In fact, you're only asking for love in that snarky comment you made. It looked like a snarky comment. But if I look at you with my Christ eyes, you were just asking me to love and be loved. So that truly love is the answer to everything, to my upsetness and to reacting and acting toward you.
I see you nodding your head a lot. What's going through your mind?
Oh, just echo everything she's saying. I can tell she's another Marianne Williamson. Just awesome about the truth and how we come across to others. Wow. But the Bible says it too. By their fruits you should know them. And the fruit of love, if you give it every day and share with others, that's it. That's all we need. But so it's pretty easy. It gets easier the older you get.
What do you mean by that?
Well, because then you're just like Ray said, you're open mind. So you love people as they come. Doesn't matter where they go to church or what color they're wearing or what's their culture. You just are just always curious about meeting people and sharing love or giving or accepting their love. And it's just amazing. I think that's what we all need to do, to just immerse ourselves in cultures and listen to other people, just know where they're coming from and what they need from us, and without judgment. So
well, I think that's, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's it.
That's one of the inspirations for this podcast, really, is because, yeah, this is a platform, an opportunity to actually show at its highest level, love in action, right? Like, how can two random people, you guys are not random, but you know what I mean, that connect meeting for the first time, have any kind of meaningful interaction and even speak as vulnerably as you are about your own spiritual journey. Now, not only does the Course in Miracles seem to connect the two of you, but you both have also an interest in the show Blackish. Did you know this?
Yeah.
I know it was kind of a left turn, but I'm like, I gotta ask about Blackish.
And Mixed-ish, the both of them. I just love them. Yeah. Because they, oh, Valerie, it does sort of what you do. One of the things I admire about you is that you ask gently but forcefully, focused. You ask gentle but focused questions that get me to think about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, where I'm going, what needs to be happening. You're a master at asking what coming out of somebody else's mouth would be an uncomfortable question, and I might put up a wall. And you do it in such a wonderfully, gently focused way that I think, oh, never have thought about that, have I? Maybe I should. Yes, I think probably that would lead to some growth, and it does. And that's what Mixed-ish and Blackish does for me. It brings up stuff that, I mean, you know, here I am. You can see what my color is.
And for those of you listening to the podcast, Grace is white. They may not see the video, Grace.
Oh, that's right. I am definitely white. Yes. You know, summertime red. Never.
White or red.
Yeah. And I will freely admit that I am racist. How can anybody grow up in Dallas, Texas, where they never saw a professional person that was Black, where the Black people they saw had to go to the bus, you know, back of the bus, where you had Black fountains and white fountains, where, you know, and you keep growing up, and even though you get to a point where you begin to get equalized, they weren't equalized. Still, that the white supremacy is in full effect even today. Thank goodness. I think we have an opportunity to kind of chunk away at it. But I forgot where I was going.
No, this is great. It's going in an interesting direction. It was all about Blackish and Mixed-ish and what attracted you to those shows.
Yeah. And so those shows are educating me, along with a lot of other stuff that I've been into lately. But those shows are making me stop and think about who I have been all my life and how my world has been all my life.
What about for you?
Oh, well, yes, I love Anderson, and just so awesome, you know, and just fun. And so just like Grace said about you, Valerie. Yes. Oh, by the way, Grace, Valerie's been practicing from she was like 6 years old, you know, to say the questions, you know, to do them just right. And you had your answer. But she just had a way with words. And she was like, 4 or 5. Yeah.
Not surprised.
She's perfected them. Yeah. You said it. No, she's got to master it. But I love the show as well, because it's not like my priest was saying that, you know, it's not like someone telling you should do this, but listen in a fun way. And as you said, there are things that come to light. Oh, I didn't realize that this is the way I saw that. Oh my goodness. So that's a great way. So light, you know, hearted, and that it touches people. I think that's what we all need, you know, to have there's no judgment. Just, hey, look at it a different way. Marianne Williamson says that's it. I accept, you know, I can look at it differently. and the way I've been living or what I've known, yeah, why not look at it this way? It might be a truth in there, and you know, you can learn so much. But yeah, I love those two shows as well. Last week was awesome, hilarious.
I think, you know, this is so interesting because what both of you are saying in relation to your spiritual evolution and also your interest in watching shows like Blackish and Mixedish, the lightheartedness, the love, the lack of judgment in challenging or very profound topics seems to be what draws. I don't know. I'm just thinking. Picking up, that seems to be what's drawing you, because those topics, when you talk about race, talk about religion, those are the topics that create some of the most divisive behavior on the planet. People go to war, right? There's so much violence that takes place because of these two areas, two topics. But the two of you are so fascinating to listen how you're both attracted to more lighthearted, a more loving approach to topics that can be quite divisive. Fascinating. What else would you say about that? And Mama, I want to come back to you actually, specifically around so what Grace mentioned, that you know, growing up in a community that, at least in your youth, Grace, that's definitely racist, right? This is how things work. That was the system that people had to live and work in, right? I wonder, Mama, if you could share a little bit about your own perspective as it relates to that, how you grew up and how you were I don't want to say indoctrinated, not necessarily indoctrinated, but what was the message that you got in your life over time about race or about religion, even in your experience?
Well, yeah, I grew up, I was very, very fortunate to have lived with a godmother in my very, very young, from about 4 through 12 years old. And she owned a business, she had a restaurant. And of course, all kinds of people. I was just so always amazed at the people that came, it wasn't in the Colon, which is a really a port, where a lot of
this is in Panama, by the way, the Republic of Panama, just in case people don't.
In Panama, and the Colon is the Atlantic side, and a lot of ships docked there, and so we saw a lot of people would come to the restaurant, and we just loved to listen to people talk, and just an amazing thing of all nationalities, and I was always very curious about that. And then at 12 years old, we moved back to Panama City, which is where my parents were. And I lived with my parents then, and went to Spanish-speaking schools, and saw a different group of people that I grew up with, later on. I did not speak Spanish as fluent either at the time.
So we should say Colon is actually a predominantly Black community, yes. Right? Community, yes. Either African slaves who's generational, right? So African slaves that were brought to Colon, established, and once they were freed, established communities and were raising family there.
Yes.
And then also West Indians. There were a lot of also people from the West Indies that moved to Panama during the construction of the canal and settled in Colon, just to give people a little cultural context.
Yes, awesome. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then, so coming back to the city, and to the capital, it was so different. Then we have most of the native Panamanian, and my teacher was just wonderful. And I've just been blessed, I think, all my life to have great people in my life. Valerie talked about the circle of influence, and she was one. And I remember I spoke very broken Spanish, and but she was so patient. But I had one good thing going, that I had a beautiful penmanship, because I had very good teachers in Colon that insisted on, the old-fashioned handwriting had to be perfect. And so I had very nice handwriting, and my teacher loved that. So she let me do all the writing on the chalkboard, so I did all the writing for the kids. Had to respect me because I did all the teacher's pet. And then in exchange, she was just so patient in teaching me, and I learned Spanish. I'll visit her home, and a group of us from our class, would visit her home from time to time. We did a lot of cultural visits, a lot of trips, and we had a great time. But the thing about it is that, yes, there was no, there were all colors, all sorts of people. And so I grew up with that. And in the church, the Salvation Army, we also had a wonderful mix of people. We had a lot of missionaries that would come through from time to time from New Zealand and from Africa, even from the continent, and from Jamaica, and just amazing, Argentina. So I was always so blessed to meet people from all around the world, and that shaped my, my outlook on what people are all about. There's not just one color, one race, is the human race, as Abraham Lincoln said.
Fascinating. And so now, Grace, you can see where I get some of my own ideas.
Yeah, how wonderful. Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm curious, what questions would you ask each other, or what observations would you make about what you guys have each shared?
All right, you go, Grace.
How did you handle all those boys?
Ask Valerie.
Don't ask me. I ignored them.
You had five kids, was it? I can't remember.
Four
kids, and three of them boys. Yeah.
boys. Yes. Well, they were all amazing, because I remember when I came home from work and I'm like, oh, the dishes aren't washed. Whose turn is it to clean the refrigerator? Whose turn is it to clean the bathrooms?
Oh, I'm impressed already. You had Rota on doing the housework. That was wonderful.
Well, you should finish that thought.
And guess what? Valerie, she was the princess, so she would sit and read her books. As long as she was reading her books or whatever, listen to music. The boys run around the house doing all the chores.
No, that is not how that worked. Nope. No princess here. No, because the reason they were running around is because you told them they were supposed to do their chores and before you get caught home, and they hadn't, so they had to run around. I had already done my stuff, which I had then the luxury to sit back and read. That's what happened. And I'm like, Mama's here, Daddy's here, boom. And then they took off. I was reading that because I didn't do work, is because I'd already done my work.
Reminded me, Valerie.
Just a little behind the curtain.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh, we had a fantastic time. They were great kids. I just had a great time. Love them. The older they got, that was my thing. I love hanging out with young people. They all went to Boy Scouts, and Valerie did Girl Scouts a little bit, but then she preferred the Boy Scout time. So
they did more fun stuff. Yeah.
Yes,
especially in the 80s and 90s. It was boring Girl Scout stuff. Brownies and candle making. And I'm like, really? They get archery, horseback riding.
Yeah.
You got to make really cool bracelets with leather.
Oh, have you heard in the little news that Girl Scouts are Eagle Scouts now?
I heard, yeah.
It's Eagle Scouts. So that was awesome. The girls were listening, Valerie, to you. Now they're exploring the big, wider world.
Valerie, I'm gonna have to say, your mama was right. You were a princess. Sorry.
Yes,
basing this on my own experience. I was one of 5 with 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers. And I've always, until the past 2 or 3 years, always said, you'd think I'd be spoiled, wouldn't you, being the only girl? I wasn't spoiled. Everybody in the house had something to do. I worked, and I did work. But I discovered within the last 3 years, I am a prima donna, and I like things the way I like them.
Prima donna.
I get my way. And I think it had to be partly to do with the fact that I was a little princess. I know everybody, even though I remember the day that I couldn't beat up my next youngest brother anymore. That was a horrible day. But still, mostly they kind of, I wasn't carried around on a silver pillow, but there were certain preferences, at least, in the attitude. So, you might want to check that out, honey.
They will say whatever they will say. My stance is,
you might want to check it out.
I had some privileges. So yeah. And
what you do about it now?
I mean, what can I do? I'm the only girl. Of course I'm gonna have my own room. Of course I'm gonna have the better stereo. Of course I'm gonna, I did learn something. So the cool thing during this pandemic, is that, you know, although I have two of my three brothers that live here in the area, but we haven't always been able to get together in person. And then my third brother lives in Alabama, close to my mother. And what's interesting is we've started doing these like Zoom sibling chats, maybe a couple times, maybe 3-4 times a month. We get together, and sometimes they'll go as long as like 4 hours. We're just talking about everything from our childhood to like ideas. We watch funny videos on YouTube together, just random stuff. But one thing I learned recently in those conversations, I didn't ask if, you know, about being a princess or not, but one of the things that was distinguished is that I didn't, especially my dad, I would challenge my dad more forcefully. And I criticized my brothers for not always having my back sometimes when my dad got mad at me for something and I'd spoken out about something, and they were like, they made themselves scarce. And I said, well, why didn't you just stand up with me? Like all three of us together. And they were like, we knew that you wouldn't get hit. You could you said, as a woman, you can get away with saying things to a man that men can't get away with saying to each other. And I was like, really? That's a thing? Yeah. Anything like that from us to another man would be like a direct challenge, and that would not go well for us. So yeah, you're on your own. I'm like, oh, okay, I forgive you guys. It's fine. I get that. It's fascinating. So now I'm curious about, so this is the first time the two of you have met officially. I think maybe in passing, you know, when my mother's been here to Dallas at, you know, at the Unity Church. But I'm curious, how has this experience been of meeting and having this conversation?
Well, yes. I didn't get to ask Grace my question.
Oh, what's your question? Yes.
All right, Grace. No, I wanted to learn a lot more. She said she's been a student of the Course of Miracles last 10 years. So what do you do now with the course? Are you a teacher or mentor?
You know, it seems like my whole life has led up to the last 4 years. It's really interesting. I was a teacher and got a master's degrees and taught teachers and had a business concern for the gifted education in England, and came back and had a family. And when time came to pick up my professional life, I knew how hard it was teaching, and so I decided to be a secretary, and I felt terrible. A stupid mindset, thinking, here I have 2 master's degrees and I'm not using them. And I'm now knowing that was Spirit's plan. I am the technical person in One Light Ministry, which is a business that we have put together based on Course in Miracles. We couldn't do the Zooms. We couldn't do the website. We couldn't do an awful lot of stuff if I hadn't spent those years chained to the typewriter and learned all kinds of pieces of software. You know, that was my training for now. And this job that I have now, which is with my husband, we run One Light Ministry, and it's the most fulfilling that I've ever done, simply because Course in Miracles, like I said, has answered all the questions I had before and answered a lot of questions that I didn't even know that I had. It is my path. It is a loving path. It is the way to create peace in the world. So we have Monday night study groups. John leads those. We have Wednesday noon study groups. John leads those. We have Healing Circle on Saturday that we co-sponsor with Unity on Greenville. And I co-teach. Sometimes he teaches it, sometimes I teach it. We have retreats where we take a whole day, where we have just a topic from A Course in Miracles. All of this is A Course in Miracles. So we have from 9:30 to 4:30, and we've had 3 Zoom retreats on the computer, and they've been very successful to go that long. And then, you know how God plans your life, Angela? About 4 years ago, God got me into counseling. I'm laughing because I had, you know, years before, I probably read every self-help book on the planet, you know, and I have the kind of personality where I have supported people in their lives. And, so I had thought about becoming a counselor, but I didn't want to go back and spend 4 years doing stuff that I didn't really believe in. All of the psychology that comes from Freud and all kinds of other people. Yes, that's important. But Course in Miracles, it has psychology in it. And the greatest psychologist within Course in Miracles is Spirit. So God got me into counseling, and I went to a place called, it's an online church without walls, Pathways of Light. And they have educational opportunities and all sorts of things. If anybody's interested in Course in Miracles with looking for courses, that would be pathwaysoflight.org. It's a great place to go as well. And I took a 4-part course where the first 3 parts were to clear your stuff out. And then the last part was to help you learn what their kind of counseling is. And I was delighted to see, I'd already been counseling for a couple of years and decided that I needed a certification. So then I found this and took this. And I was delighted that what they say in their counseling is, let Spirit take over. And that's pretty much the way I do my counseling. And it's based on Course in Miracle principles. So everything I've done in my whole life has led up to this point of time where I feel like I'm serving and doing what I'm supposed to be doing in this life.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like that. You're serving. That's amazing. That's one. Hence the hands. Wonderful.
And Mama, for you, service is also quite important to you. What was it about that resonates?
Yeah, so, from when I was very young, as you said, I love the Salvation Army because of that outlook, about the missions that they always carry out around the world. And I love that. I've done some of that. Even in the Episcopal Church, I've been to several missions to the Dominican Republic and here in Florida. It's just wonderful to be able to serve and to share, with others. And so I really like that. And I've learned a lot, as I said, visiting, and learning from different people from all walks of life and every single culture or religion. And sharing is a great thing. The same as hope and love, we take it wherever we go by giving to others. Now, in this phase of my life, I want to get into, I'm very, very interested in foster care. And I'm started the process of getting into foster respite care, maybe, because I've heard about, in the state of Alabama, there are 6,000 plus children that are in need of foster homes. And so I like to do that. That's my next adventure, Valerie. Next adventure.
Yes, there's always another adventure.
Angela?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Oh, finish. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I'm just starting, the process. A lot of training goes through, in it. And so speaking of which, with the Methodist home, children's home, I'll be, they'll be training. I'll be training with them and learning all the ropes and all the stuff that I need to do in order to be an effective foster parent.
You had mentioned a little while ago about how you have all these young people in your life. I don't even know if you'll be able to answer this or not, but I would be really curious. What do you think it is about you that attracts young people? Because I'm sure it's a mutual attraction that you have. They're not going to stay around if you're not attracting them. So what do you think it is?
Yeah, I guess like you said, that's a key there. Open hands and open mind. The open mind, because they will tell you anything, they'll tell you everything. You're not judging. You're just always, it's a lot of fun to be around. They like to be around me because I like to play with them too, and make everything light. So even if they have a test tomorrow, I taught school too. Lately, the last 5 years, I was a substitute teacher. And I really, really like that. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, you're a saint. You're a saint.
I guess what? My favorite kids are the middle schoolers.
You are a saint.
13, 14. But to tell you that, I don't understand how it goes, but because like I would hear in the morning, if I got to a classroom, a teacher called me, she needed a sub the last minute, and the buzzword would be, who's the sub? Who's the sub? Who's the sub? Oh no, Miss Hope. And I would hear and see kids dodging and running away. So I don't know what that's about. I'm no saint.
I know exactly what that's about. And actually, my older brother, Eduardo, has exactly the same effect when he was a substitute teacher. It's because you take teaching seriously. There was no like, oh, good, we have a sub. We're going to coast today. We're going to have a break. No. No. My mom makes you work.
Oh, no, we have no movies today. No movie day. Oh, movie day.
But there's two sides to the attraction. It depends on her role. but look, I can already tell that beyond this conversation, there's so much more for the two of you to share and to explore. So I completely welcome and encourage that. But I want to now shift the focus to the experience of being here and having this conversation with one another for the first time. So what's that been like? What are you present to in this experience?
I just know that when I go back to Dallas, I'm going straight to Gracie's home. I think she has a lot to offer, and I want to go to those studies, and she's going to serve dinner, and it's going to be awesome.
That was a setup.
I don't know if Valerie would like this or not, but we have a spare bedroom. You could just come and stay with us for a while.
Oh, I don't mind.
Valerie.
I don't mind. My mom can come here to visit.
Right after the pandemic, I'll be there, Grace.
Good. I'll look for you. That'd be fabulous. I really would like to get to know you better. You've had some really interesting experiences in your lifetime. Yeah, and I can tell that broadness about you. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. And I like to I'll need some counseling once I come to you, right? Is there a fee involved?
You know what? We ask offering several years ago. That's a whole thing that we went through several years ago. We were, 75% of my houses are Virgo, so I'm picky, detail oriented. And I was trying to every piece of paper account for it. It was awful. And finally, Spirit said, you give, you get. That's part of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Giving is receiving is giving. If you give 100%, you get whatever you need. Spirit knows what your needs are. So ever after, the only thing we charge is a love offering, and it's worked beautifully well. But for you can come.
I love the Spirit. Yes.
You never anybody away.
Spirit was like, I better ask while she's on camera.
Yes.
Now, before we started all of this, I was asking you about that beautiful red thing that was hanging.
Yes.
In your doorway, and you told me that it was Chinese. Did you?
Yes, it is.
I need to know about that. I need to know not about the object, but how you obtained the object. I think that would be interesting.
Yes, I have several Chinese gifts that as I said earlier, I hosted or was a sponsor for several university students, from international students. And whenever they came, they'll bring gifts, and India and Bangladesh and China, because we have quite a few Chinese students here in our area. And they're the majority. And so I really, really loved it. And can you imagine? They'll invite me over to their dorm rooms and they'll cook, Chinese food. That's wonderful.
Oh, yes, I can imagine that.
Yeah, great. I had a wonderful time.
You guys you're going to run out of stuff to talk about. I've been
Spirit move.
Spirit is leading me to have you guys talk about what the experience has been of being on the podcast. Let's go there. They're so funny.
I love it. I didn't picture anybody out there at all. Wonderful conversation. This is delightful. Thank you.
I'm curious about what was your expectation, if you want to call it expectation, or what did you think would happen, and how does that compare to the actual experience?
Oh, that you let us talk. I thought you had like 50 questions. I was like, I hardly slept last night thinking we had all these questions we had to answer. So that was liberating. Ooh, because Valerie, you said it, Grace, the master question.
All these focused questions. I would put you on the spot.
But always helping you go to good places, that those questions do.
That's right. That's right.
Well-intentioned.
Yeah.
All right. So you were a little nervous that I would ask you a list of questions, and now you found that this was a liberating conversation. Okay, I got that. And Grace, what about you?
I really thought it was just going to be a wonderful give and take, and it was. It was just wonderful.
Yeah. Great.
You didn't have to ask any questions, Valerie.
I didn't actually.
That's right.
I had to put a couple plugs in. I'm like, hey, can I just? No, this is wonderful. One of the things I'm left with is how I'm always so inspired about how much you all are committed. Both of you are committed to growth and developing, like lifelong learning. First of all, I think is so evident for both of you, and enthusiasm for that. Not as I guess there's nothing else to do. You just have to keep learning and growing, but more as you're reaching for it, searching it out. And I find that incredibly inspiring. So there's wonderful, wonderful energy around that.
Isn't that the way you're supposed to live life?
I don't know if there's a supposed to. and then that's part of it. I think part of it in this, my intention is having conversations that really shift what's supposed to happen, right? That's what I meant by challenge the status quo, is that, conversations will go where they're supposed to go, and people do things for their own unique reason. And this is an opportunity to like peek behind the curtain to see why. And that's all.
What would you say, Grace? It comes with age, right?
Maybe. I think if you're on that trajectory as youth, then you'll be on that trajectory. I think there are a lot of people that are closed because they've been closed all their lives. So I learned something. I have to pass on. I learned something from my mother-in-law. She died about ago at 101.
Wow.
Her husband died when she was 85, and they decided not to make any decisions until 3 years. So she decided 88 to come to Dallas. She was in California, lived all her life in California, and she rebuilt a whole life at age 88 completely. And when she broke her hip at 96, they replaced it, and she continued to live until 101. And what I saw was a model for how to do old age. I don't think I'm old yet. I look it, but I don't think I'm old.
Don't look it.
No, people when I was young, they were my age, my relatives, they were old. I'm not old yet.
No,
So in the next 30 years, please God, she would things would happen to her, and she would assess, she would accommodate, and then she would move forward. Mm-hmm. It's like if there was a boulder in the road, she would see if she could move it. If she couldn't move it, she'd see if she could go around it on top of it. If she couldn't go on top of it, she'd just go around it. She'd find a way. She would accommodate to whatever happened in her life. Not sit down and be upset about what life had given her, but just find a way to be of service, to be happy, to love people. Mm-hmm. And the love that she spread in her lifetime was just, that's the way to live. So I'll just pass that on for anybody that wants to get old.
That's awesome.
Anyone that wants to get old. Right now, we're moving in the right direction. I think that's the main thing.
Awesome.
And what are you guys taking from this conversation? What's something that maybe surprised you, or that you're left with, this is something that I'm going to do or try or learn more about as a result? Those were like 3 different questions. So let me start with, yes. So let me start with, what were you surprised by?
I didn't know.
There were no questions.
Okay. I have them now.
I actually didn't realize.
Part two.
I did not realize that Angela was so into the same kind of thing that I was into. I actually thought she diverged and we were going to present different viewpoints. So I was just a soul sister. Yay.
Literally.
Literally. And I want to learn more.
Yes.
So Mama, you stick with your original answer about not having questions? That was what surprised you the most?
Oh, no. And of course, learn of spirit. I just love Like Grace had to say about the type of counseling she does, that the spirit takes over and the spirit moves. That's so interesting. So I'll be giving you a call. I'll see you in Dallas.
Good. Good.
What was the most challenging part of this conversation, if any?
Oh, nothing at all.
None?
Trying not to step on somebody when they're talking. I have to concentrate on trying not to step on somebody when they're
Not to
talking.
step on the cover. Got that. and then the last bit here is when you think about, you know, the things that you both are committed to and learning and developing yourselves and being open-minded, what advice or what wisdom would you like to offer anyone that's listened to this conversation?
Well, just as the Bible says, and every spiritual path that we need to show what's the word, Valerie? What does you said Thurman says? Howard Thurman.
Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs are more people who have come alive.
That's exactly what I like. I just heard about Thurman the other day that he has been very influential, but you know, you don't hear about him as often as Martin Luther King and others in the civil rights movement, but he's a very, very interesting person. Was. And I like that. What makes you come alive? I really love that, Valerie, and that's one of your favorites.
Mm-hmm. My favorite quote. So that's the wisdom that you would share is for people to don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it.
Do it.
Got it. Cool. Grace, what about you?
The wisdom I would share is something that I've been learning recently. There's a Bible verse that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not in your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him and he'll direct your paths. And ACIM ised it, of course in miracleized it. And it is, trust spirit always. Don't trust your ego. At every decision point, ask spirit for guidance and you'll get it. And we all have the wise inner guide, whatever you call it. We have a wise inner guide that's so much smarter than the accumulated stuff that our ego knows how to do. And if we ask, we get guided. We get the answers that we need. So practice, that's the hard part, because we're not used to asking spirit's guidance. So that's it.
That's it.
At every juncture, ask, and you'll get guidance. You have to hush up and listen to it, and then you have to do it.
And I would say both of those pieces of wisdom are connected, right? Because I find that when we listen to spirit gives us what brings us life.
Absolutely.
It's very easy to tell, right? It's very easy to tell. Wow. I think the two of you should have your own podcast. I don't know, just Spirit is trying to tell you that. You guys should host the Hope and Grace show. Like that. Hope and Grace, Grace and Hope. Hey.
Good one. You got a good one. We'll think about it.
I'm so grateful the two of you said yes to being on this podcast and meeting each other, and to have had as much fun and been as generous and contributing information, ideas, opinions as you have. Anything else that you want to say before we wrap up for the day?
I'm just so glad I met Valerie's mother and had a conversation with her, and hope we have many more.
Yes. I'm so proud of my daughter and all the people that she brings into the fold. I think it's wonderful.
Cool. And I'm proud of both of you. You guys did great. I didn't have neither of you embarrassed me.
We could go on a little longer.
That's part 2.
Yeah, there'll be a part 2, clearly. But something that you guys don't know, that the audience should know, is I find that it's so important not only to introduce these two people, the two of you, but I also get the sense, and there's more people out there who could stand to have a conversation with you that could really benefit from one. So we're putting in place once a quarter, and we'll give you more information when you subscribe to notquitestrangers.com. once a quarter, we're going to bring all the guests that we've had on the podcast together on a Zoom call where you get an opportunity to interact with them, ask questions, follow up on things that maybe you heard on the podcast that you want to hear more about. So I invite the two of you, Mama and Grace, to participate in that if you're available. And the whole idea is that you not only have an opportunity to do your part two, continue your conversation, but also open up the space for those of you who might be out here listening and watching this to also engage and not, you know, and have some additional not quite strangers in your own life. So that's, yeah. So we'll put more information in the show notes so that you're able to connect to us. And then the last thing is beyond the, bless you, beyond the podcast episodes, we also have put together my good friend Felipe Ferreira in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He's out there listening, I know. He and I put together a series of challenges because it's not enough to just listen to a conversation like this and not walk away getting inspired. We know that there's steps and actions that you can take in your own life. So these connection challenges that we've put together, we will send them to you in your inbox every other week. When we have a podcast one week, we'll have a challenge the next week. So you get a chance to actually put this in practice. And this is actually coming, was inspired by Grace and some of the stuff that you started to do with One Light Ministry. Yeah. So thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Not Quite Strangers. Please make sure you go to notquitestrangers.com to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And Grace, Mama, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. You're awesome.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. Great.
You've been listening to the podcast Not Quite Strangers. Be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite video or podcast platform. And for more information and content, go to notquitestrangers.com. See you next time.